Welcome all of you to creating a coaching culture. We are very excited to have each of you here, very much looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you for the questions you submitted ahead of time. Those of you that submitted questions that are about coach training and becoming a coach, I will answer those at the end. Those of you that submitted questions around creating the coaching culture, we will of course address those as we go, and we want to invite you to ask more questions. It's so much more fun and helpful when you're asking questions. You can do that one of two ways. You can raise your hand and I can unmute you. You can come in live and ask your question. That's a lot of fun, adds energy. And then alternatively, I will monitor the question panel as we go. And so you can type questions in there as well. So what are we going to talk about during this quick 30-minute conversation? So our agenda today, we will start with definitions. We'll have a definition for coaching. I'm guessing most of you are familiar with that. I do have some new faces here, so hopefully that's good for that. And then we will move into the reasons for having a coaching culture inside of an organization. We'll talk about engaging the workforce with a coaching culture, supporting a coaching culture for the long term, and then of course a review of resources for you and time for questions and answers. So diving into the definitions, and as I said, I'm guessing a lot of you are familiar with this. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I gotta say, every time I read it, I still get excited because of the word choice and what it means to us, the way it's written and defined. So the definition comes from the International Coach Federation. And there's articles that talk about this. A coaching relationship is completely different than any other type of professional relationship. Because in a professional relationship, we're used to the professional being the expert. And that's true whether it's an attorney, a mental health professional, an accountant, etc. In coaching, it's truly a partnership. And the definition says that right at the start. It is a strategic partnership in which the coach empowers the client. We put them in charge of being their own best expert. And it is the client who clarifies their goals, creates their action plans, figures out how, and then follows through on moving past obstacles. And it is the client who achieves what the client chooses. So our role as the coach is to partner with them. And ultimately, they are their own best expert. So when we take that concept and we bring it into an organization, what does that mean? A culture utilizes a positive, proactive approach at all levels for empowering employees to the greatest extent possible. And if you think about what goes on in the workplace, you can sense the power of this. It's phenomenal. It used to be we thought it was okay to micromanage. We know better now. And the more we really empower people and put them in charge of doing what they're doing, the more you're getting out of the whole team, the whole organization. So fabulous. Love that definition too. When you think about, okay, what are the reasons to have a coaching culture in an organization? Let's look at that. Coaching inspires people. Coaching engages people, and coaching motivates. So when you think about each of these elements, let's dive into them. When we say coaching inspires people. Because when they define their own goal, their own objective, they exceed the targets that they set for themselves. And that is a quote from Gordon Dryden. So those of us who coach have experienced this. Those of us who have been coached have experienced this. If somebody tells you what to do, follow through and success are less likely. When somebody figures out what they want to do themselves, that's when you get the follow through. And that's inspiring. People get excited when they figure out their own answer. Coaching engages. And this quote comes from John Russell. He said, "I never cease to be amazed at the power of the coaching process," and check this out, "to draw out the skills or talent that was previously hidden within an individual and which invariably finds a way to solve a problem previously thought unsolvable." It's so fun in coaching to experience a client that really does advance and they take it to the next level. The stories we all have about clients that move from point A to point Z, just all the way, are so exciting. And of course, for the individual, they're completely engaged. When they are in the workplace, drawing on their own talent, their own skills, and solving problems, they feel good about what they do at work, and that engages them. And I'm guessing several of you have experienced when people say, "Yeah, I'm looking for a different job. I'm not really using my skills here. I'm getting kind of bored." And that happens a lot. So coaching is an opportunity to engage people. Coaching motivates. And here's a quote to give you the example there from Bob Nelson. "You get the best effort from others, not by lighting a fire beneath them, by building a fire within." And that's what we do as coaches. That fire from within is going to get them there. And they're going to be motivated to do more, to achieve more, to be smarter and more productive with the work that we're doing. Very, very exciting. And it's just thinking about what we do and the power of it, the impact of it in coaching. It's so obvious how powerful it is. Okay. So we've talked about reasons for a coaching culture. Now let's go in further. Let's start with engaging the workforce. We do it by inviting, exploring, and with group coaching. So let's start with the concept of inviting. With all of the information available today, and we know there's a lot, the manager doesn't have the answers. They may know some things, they're not going to know all of them. When we're the coach, we're not expected to have the answers. It's the client who has the answers. So in the workplace, just like as with coaching, managers can now count on their staff to be the experts and to provide the information. And it's the manager switching to that coaching role of asking the questions that is going to invite those employees to step up to the plate. And when you invite them in and really do give them that opportunity, they're engaged in what they're doing. In exploring. Well, coaching is very much about exploring. It goes back to the questions that we ask. And some of you have heard me say it this way: coaching is advanced development for advanced results. It goes way beyond what happens. For example, in training, we provide information. When you add the coaching, it's people really thinking that through. What does it mean to them? What's the application for them? How are they using it? And it is where you create the meaningful change. And it starts with the coaching conversation. So exploring that, and that the coach is asking questions, challenging thinking, expanding thinking in a way that, hey, I'm on your side, I'm your partner in doing this. That's how you get that lasting change. Well, when you get that lasting change individually, take that and apply it in the organization. It spreads out, it expands, and it's powerful. Yes, of course, people are going to be more engaged. Group coaching is a great way to do this in the workplace. So coaching is a conversation. And we think about it most commonly on the individual level. Specifically, the coach and the individual have that interaction. The coach is listening to the client, asking them questions. The client is choosing their goals, figuring out how they want to enhance their own performance and results and move forward in a group setting, and let me extend that also, please, to a team setting. We have that kind of conversation and that kind of dialogue, and we engage everybody. And they're asking those questions, they're thinking it through, expanding their thinking, and truly moving forward in a way that's powerful. And when you have that group session, back to some of the other things you've often heard us talk about. We talk about how when people leave their job, they're not leaving the company, they're leaving typically their boss. Now take this application and consider what the power is, what the impact is. When the boss has that exchange, that conversation, and empowering the employee, and you have a group conversation where you're asking questions and people are working together on it, that level of engagement and involvement makes people want to stay because they are engaged in what they're doing on the job. And that, of course, enhances the results the organization gets. Now, when you create a coaching culture, of course, the objective to it is making sure it's going to be there for the long term. So if you want the coaching culture there for the long term, how do you make sure you do that? First off, it's got to be in place at all levels. I'm sure many of you have experienced it. If you've got somebody that says, oh, we want a coaching culture, and they're entry level to mid level, you don't have the buy-in at the highest levels of management, how long is that going to last? It's a constant struggle and battle. So it's essential that it be incorporated at all levels. Training is essential. It's ironic that we even question whether or not training is important for people doing coaching. It's amazing how often people think they're coaching and they're actually not really aware of what coaching is. So training, and according to personnel management, best practices is to get external training for your internal coaches. And here's where that comes from. I've been a trainer and in that world, and I know several of you have as well. When we hear, oh, okay, the company wants a training like this, we simply go out and create it. Well, if we haven't had the training ourselves on coaching, we actually don't know how to create it effectively. And so that's the reason that external training is so essential. Consistency, a big one. If we are in and out, hit and miss, sometimes getting that change in a way that's meaningful isn't going to happen. So setting it up and ensuring that it's going to be consistent. So let's talk a few examples there. In terms of all levels, I love this. Don Shula, my responsibility is leadership. And the minute I get negative, that is going to have an influence on my team. And think about that. Well, of course that makes sense. In the workplace, we see it all the time. So if a leader is positive, people want to follow them. Now consider the implication of that when we talk about coaching. If you have leaders that are positive about a coaching culture, and in fact coaching itself is positive, that application of it, then you're getting that throughout the workforce. And of course, that's essential if you want the long-term result. So all levels. Now, we have done webinars, and some of you have seen them, where we talk about, hey, how do you get that? To get the buy-in from the top levels of management, very often it's showing them the research, showing them the facts. Coaching is here to stay. And it's gotten to the point where companies are either have a coaching program or they're going to have a coaching program, or they're just not going to be around for the long term. And so it's giving them the research, showing them the information. And there's a lot of it out there. There's research in terms of different organizations and what their programs have been. There is research overall that talks about organizations with coaching cultures earning more. So you have a lot of different examples. Creating the buy-in starts at the top, and then it trickles down and spreads out. We want that at all levels. Another essential element for a coaching culture in the long term is the training. Um, I loved it. We've talked about this one a lot, and of course, you know that because we do the training, and ICF has as well. Would you go to an accountant who wasn't certified? Would you go to a doctor who didn't pledge to uphold the Hippocratic Oath? And on the same vein, why would anyone even think about partnering with a life or business coach who hasn't been trained in coaching process or doesn't have that accountability to a code of standards or code of ethics? And so that training absolutely makes sense. Now let's go even further with it. If you think about what happens inside of an organization, if the training's internal, created internally, that kind of thing, chances are you're going to get some good training on some good skills such as communication skills, people skills, etc. Will it encompass the coaching? Unless they've had external training themselves, no, it's not. It's going to be different. And they're going to miss out on really understanding how coaching works, what the competencies are, and how to apply those competencies. And then, of course, the code of ethics, because there are some significant nuances in the code of ethics that must be covered in training to really have coaching work for the long term. So it absolutely makes sense. And then your consistency. Harvey Penick said this one. This is a great one. I learned teaching from teachers. I learned golf from golfers. I like this. I learned winning from coaches. That's an awesome one. And of course, that's something that we experience when we're working with people. It's the coaches make that difference. I want to extend his quote and say, learn coaching from coaches, that coaches that have been trained, that are part of the ICF, that kind of thing. It just makes sense. Okay. So we've got the core content. I mentioned that several of you submitted questions ahead of time. I want to move into those for a few minutes before I start diving into some of the resources, etc. And while I'm pulling up the questions that were submitted in advance, I also want to invite all of you, if you want to raise your hand and ask a question, do so. Be delighted to bring you in live. And then also, of course, you can be typing it in the question panel. So several of you had questions specific to coach training and getting certified. One person, you asked, and I see that you're here, can it be obtained by only online? Yes, you have that option. So we do offer training that is either blended learning of online and face-to-face, or you could take a program that is completely online. And so yes, you have that option. Somebody else asked about the required time and resource commitments for becoming a certified coach. What I'll share with you is to become a member of the ICF, they're going to require that you have 60 hours of training. To earn a credential with the ICF, in addition to training, they also want you to have experience as a coach and to work with a mentor coach. So initially, we have a 30-hour program. We love it because it gives people a chance to stick their toe in the water and check it out and say, hey, is this right for me? And because we know that that class fits a lot of schedules and budgets, and it gets people started. If you are going to put yourself out there as a coach and continue, then yes, you want to move on and take the next level of training. We offer a certified master coach class or a certified coach specialist class, and those programs are all 35 hours. So that combined, you have the hours to become a member of the ICF. Above and beyond that, if you do want to earn a credential, you're tracking your coaching hours, we do offer the mentor coaching program, and that's great in terms of preparing you. ICF has an exam that they have you take, and they're also going to ask you to submit a copy of your self-coaching, a recording. So hopefully that's answering that question. We do a lot more detail in some of our other webinars, and they are available on YouTube. So I want to invite that for you. The next question, I think it ties in both to the coaching culture and coaching in general, and it talks about best practices for coaching online. This is a great question, and we talk about it a lot. So in terms of coaching online, the pros of coaching online, first off, it means your client can be anywhere. I personally have clients in many different countries, and being able to coach them online is the reason for that. That's what makes it possible. In terms of online, one of the conversations people have is, hey, do we want to do webcams, yes or no? And there's pros and cons to that. On the pro side, when you use webcams with clients, you get to see each other, get to know each other, and there's a good feel to that. On the con side of it, it can become a distraction. So if your client is watching you take notes, they're watching your facial expressions, they may misinterpret what they're perceiving in doing that. And so oftentimes you'll start with having webcams and then switch to not using them. As far as coaching online, setting it up, there were some additional questions with this one. Typically, coaches do a free introductory session. That's a chance to get to know each other. If you're coaching inside of an organization and creating coaching services internally, it's a good idea to do that introductory session there as well. And the reason for that is you want the client, number one, to be comfortable with the person who's their coach. So it's a chance to say, hey, are we going to be a good fit and a good match? And number two, you want the client comfortable with what the process is and how it works. So we do that introductory session. They're typically around 30 minutes. It can vary. From there, best practices is a commitment to 6 sessions. Now, what's fascinating in companies is we do have, for example, a coach inside of an organization who's coaching somebody whose office is down the hallway, and they still do it either on the phone or online. And the reason for that is the advantages that go with doing it that way. Now, of course, sometimes they do get together in the same space and meet. What I can share with you is that 80% of the time coaching does happen either online or on the phone. So there's a reason for that. It's really effective and it does work. And of course, you have the option of the webcams. The other question that came in is, what is the average rate for the various forms of coaching? So typically, and really this does vary. I'm going to give you US dollars. I realize I have a lot of people here internationally. So of course, you're adjusting based on what it is in your location. In the US, if it's life coaching or career coaching and the individual is hiring you, typical rates are in the $100 to $200 range for each session. If you are talking business coaching, working with a small business owner or some of their key people, rates are typically in the $200 to $400 coaching session range. And then when you're talking executive coaching, $400 to $600 is more common. Now, of course, the level you're at inside of an organization does make a difference. So some of your entry-level and mid-level management coaching engagements are going to be less, and then your highest level executives, oftentimes it goes up from there. So hopefully that's answering that question and giving you the range on that. I believe with that, we have covered all of the questions that you submitted ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and move back into covering resources. And of course, everyone, I'm inviting you. There's a lot of people here, so I'm really hoping you'll have more questions. Type them in the question panel or raise your hand and come on live and ask those questions so we can add to the conversation. All right, in terms of resources, of course, you want to check out the International Coach Federation. They are a nonprofit professional membership organization. We're available to you through the Center for Coaching Solutions. We offer coaches that are there to provide the services. We also have coaching program support, creating the coaching culture support, whether you are looking for program manuals, you're looking for consulting, coaching, training, whatever it is you want inside your organization. And then we have the Center for Coaching Certification with that focus on the coach training. The website for the Coach Federation is coachfederation.org. You'll find lots of great information there. The Center for Coaching Certification is at coachcert.com. and the Center for Coaching Solutions.com, providing those resources. In addition to that, of course, you've got the blogs, the books, the free webinars we do. We're available as a quick check, and we do outsource. So check out the coaching blog at coachingblog.coachcert.com. Do check out the books. Every year there's a new book. Chapters are written by graduates of the program, and there is some wonderful insight and expertise in these books. We do these free webinars each month. You can sign up for our newsletter to make sure you know when they're coming. And then, of course, if you just want to schedule a phone call or email a question, we are happy to be responsive to that. And then if you want information either on consulting to develop a coaching culture or a coaching program, training for coaches, or actual coaching services, please let us know how we can be helpful there. What's next for you now? I do want to offer a free conversation. We can schedule 30 minutes. You can ask whatever you want and have that one-on-one time to address that. The way that will work is when I send you a link to the recording of today's conversation, just reply to the email, let me know you want to schedule it. I'll give you a link to my calendar. You can go in and pick a time that works for you and schedule yourself right in there. Then the next thing for you, it's really about choosing the resources you're going to use, planning your process for making it work, implementing your strategy, and getting the results that you want. I am going to say I've been watching for questions. I'm not seeing anything else, so it's okay. I guess we're covering it. I'm happy to hang around for additional time if you have more questions. And in the meantime, thank you to each and every one of you for being here and for being part of this conversation and sharing part of your day with me. Have a fabulous day, all of you, and we'll look forward to being of service. So thank you, everyone.